What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Let's see. Let's get this link shared, and then we'll be on our way. So today we're going to be just going over just some more information on the ongoing operation of the team contract, and then also we're going to go over some of the staking rules. Yesterday we went through the staking contract, and so today I'm just going to share with you some of the key takeaways from that, and just help you all start planning, become familiar with the team staking, because once team minting goes live is when the team staking goes live as well. So it'll be important information for you all to pick up on. Hexagon Wrestler in the house. What's up, Hexagon Wrestler? Well, I guess we can just get started. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Pretty much much like with Maxi, where anyone could have started and anyone can end the stake. That's just how Maximus Team works. It's fully trustless and has no admin keys. And so that means that users are responsible for the operation of the contract by running certain scheduled functions on behalf of the contract. And so the way the contracts are designed, they, during certain time periods or under certain criteria, certain functions can be run, and those functions can be run by anybody. And so it doesn't need any one person to be responsible for running these functions. Anyone can run them. And so that's what makes these contracts really unstoppable and fully trustless, is that the entire operation can really be done by anyone, and no one person has any special privileges over anyone else. And so what we're going to go over first the deployment and the contract operation. So these are the things that just need to be run during the contract's life cycle, that are used in the operation of the contract. Like, for instance, the claiming of rewards. These are functions that just need to be run. And a good way to think about these is that a lot of times people think that smart contracts are automated, but they're actually not. There's actually nothing automated about them at all. Everything that happens with the smart contract needs to be deliberately done. And so, for example, when a base stake ends and then it pays some of the base to the team contract, when that happens, the team contract doesn't know what the redemption rate per team staked is from that base payout. It has to calculate it. And it doesn't do it automatically. And so there's a function in the contract where you have to go in and deliberately mark that base stake as complete, and then calculate the earnings per team stake from that base stake. And then from there, that's how people can claim. So there's nothing automated about it. And so the contract does require certain steps as it progresses along. It does require any user to prompt that contract and get it into the next phase. And so that's what we're going to be going over first, are these just like some of the high level things that require user input. And then from there, we're going to talk about the team staking rules, and then just like we're going to revisit the 5 staking functions that we talked about a little bit yesterday. So first, let's talk about this. So when the team contract is deployed, I'll be in charge of getting the deployment done, and then that's pretty much the last thing that I'm going to do. Like once I hit deploy, it's fully complete, and so there's really nothing that I really need to do from there. I'm not, even though like I did get my transaction through to start the Maxi stake, there's really nothing that I need to actually do for any of these. So I probably won't. So I'll hit deploy, and that'll be it. But during the deployment, that's when a couple important things happen. One is that it activates the team minting phase. So once it's deployed, that's when the team minting phase is scheduled. It sets the start date as the deployment date, and then it sets the end date as 21 days later. So the team minting phase is scheduled. Then it deploys all of the perpetual pools. So the like base, trio, lucky, and desi, those stake pool contracts are actually deployed by the team contract during the deployment of that one. So, and then also in addition to the perpetual pools being deployed, the smart contract that handles the reward distribution for team stakers, that's also deployed. So when I click deploy on the team contract, not only is team deployed, but all 4 of the stake reward pools, and then the stake pools, and then the stake reward distribution contract. So that's 6 contracts that are actually deployed in this deployment step. So that's how it'll start. There's nothing that anyone else needs to do from there. The first action that someone will need to take after it's deployed is as soon as the team minting phase is over, there's 2 functions that need to be run. One for for each of the perpetual pools, that's when they'll all be eligible to stake too. So somebody has to run start stake for those perpetual pools, and that'll kick off the staking of those, base, trio, lucky, desi. So that'll start those like normal. That'll be just like how Maxi was. But then also right at that same time, someone needs to run finalize minting. And so what finalize minting does is it disables new team minting. So that's actually when the team minting phase ends, is when that finalize minting function is run. 20%, and then in that step, 20% of the maxi in the team contract is burnt. It deploys the 369 maxi escrow contract, and then sends that newly deployed contract 30% of the maxi that was entered into the contract itself. And then it schedules the maxi redistributions from that escrow contract in years 3, 6, and 9. There's a function in that contract called schedule rebates, and what it does is it schedules how many maxi is going to be released in year 3, 6, and 9, and then sets that up so it's ready to deploy or ready to distribute during those years. And then it deploys the mystery box smart contract, and it sends that 50% of the maxi in the team contract and the copy of the team minted. So we all know what the mystery box gets. Mystery box is technically a smart contract. But if you look at it, all it does, it only has 2 functions, flush team and flush maxi, meaning that it's only programmed to send maxi or team to another address that in the contract is called the mystery box hot address. So that's all that does, but it's technically a smart contract that holds the mystery box. So that's all that happens during the finalized minting. So it pretty much just like sets up the rest of the stuff. So after that, with the mystery box contract and the escrow contract being deployed, that puts us in the deployment of team. There's actually 8 smart contracts being deployed. So that's pretty wild. But then after that, there's really nothing that needs to be done for at least another year. So on day 386, and then every time the base stake ends, before people start claiming their team staker rewards, we have to run a function called prepare claims. And so anyone can run prepare claims, and at least one person needs to run it before the stake rewards from a completed period are claimed. And that prepare claims function, what that does is it goes through each of the tokens in the supported token list and records the team contract's balance of each of those coins. So that's Hex, Maxi, Hedron. It also includes all the perpetual pools. And I'm actually may not add support for, I know earlier on we had talked about adding support for USDC, ETH, and Pulse and some other coins. But I've actually kind of gone back on thinking that that's probably not a good idea. One, just like to simplify it. Two, to not give any type of hint of expectation of any type of future work. Because if there's coins in there that are added that are not currently driving revenue like the other ones are, then it's probably not a good idea to have that. And because that might give some expectation that work is going to be done, and that's not the case. Like, you should expect that as soon as I hit deploy, that my work here is done, as far as these contracts go and the income streams to them. So I may not include support for those other coins that I had mentioned before. At a minimum, it'll be Maxi, Hex, and Hedron. I'll probably add the pools themselves, just in case people who have the pool want to send some of their pool tokens to team, they can do that. But as far as like, the other coins, those probably won't be supported. Unless someone can give me a really good reason why we'd want to. My thinking is that if we want to add support for say we wanted to build a contract that pays income to team stakers in USDC, then we can just deploy a new contract for that. We don't, and we can, from the information in the team contract, we can read all the team stakers. And so you could still have a reward distribution scheme that pays team stakers, but you don't need to include that in this initial team launch. So that's at least what I'm thinking right now as it goes for this supported token list. So the prepare claims, it measures the balance of each one of those supported tokens, and then it calculates the redemption rate for each coin. And you can think of the redemption rate as the number of tokens claimable per team staked in that period. So for Hex, there's going to be a staker redemption rate, and that'll be the number of Hex that you can claim per team that you staked during that period. And so it calculates a redemption rate for all those. And then the final step in prepare claims is it transfers the tokens from the team contract to the stake reward distribution contract. And so that's what that does is what we're using the team contract is just like the balance of the team contract for each of these coins as the way to keep track of how many coins entered the contract during that year period. So at the start of every period, it gets flushed, meaning it like those tokens get transferred from the team contract to the stake reward distribution contract, and then all the coins that enter the team contract during that year period, that's what's measured and then split up, and where the redemption rate is based on. So the team contract is really just like the buffer contract. It's where the rewards go to, but it's not where you actually claim from. You're actually claiming from the stake reward distribution contract. So that's what it does. It just transfers the coins from the team contract into the stake reward distribution contract. And then from there, that's where you will go in and claim your rewards. And then aside from, so that's all that needs to happen. So every year someone needs to run prepare claims. And then in addition to that, every time the perpetual pool stake ends, we need someone to run mint Hedron, and at least before the stake ends, and then we need someone to run the end stake. And so that's just like Maxi. But yeah, so these are the main things that we need people to run. So that means finalize minting, that's only run once, starting stake for all the pools. And then as each base stake ends, so every year we need someone to run prepare claims. And then every time a perpetual pool ends, we need someone to run mint Hedron and then end stake. So that's all that, as far as the total system operation, that's all that needs to happen. So basically running one function a year and then another function every time we need to start one of the perpetual pools. So that's pretty simple, and that's all that needs to happen. So nothing advanced and nothing that requires any type of strategy or discretion. Basically, as soon as these functions are eligible to run, someone should just run them. And then even if you try running them after someone else has run it, your MetaMask won't let you run it because that function will already have been run, and so it'll throw an error that'll prevent that transaction from running. So basically, just someone needs to just press the button, and then that'll just move the stake into the next period. So yeah, it's basically how it works. So I guess next thing we're going to talk about is the team staking rules. So these are like the high level staking rules. And then some of the more details, those are more, you should probably just look directly at the staking contract code for that to just see, how it handles, the different edge cases and scenarios. But these are the things that I thought would be important here to note, is that the base contract is the calendar for team staking. To earn team staking rewards, you must stake your team for an entire 1-year base stake. And that 1-year base stake, we're calling the staking period. And then the base stake minting and redemption phase, so the 7-day period in between each base stake, we're calling that the commitment period. So let's write that down. So 7-day period between base stakes. So that's so in base, that's the minting redemption phase. So in staking, so that is called the team commitment phase. So that's basically just like the last 7 days that you have to enter the stake for the next period. That's the commitment phase, but then the 7-day or then the year-long base stake is called the staking period. And you have to be staked you have to start your stake before the staking period starts, and you have to serve throughout the entire period, throughout that entire staking period, to earn rewards for that. When you stake team, your team is burnt. And when you end stake team, it is reminted back into your wallet. You do not have to end your entire stake at once. You can end in any increment. So this is a little bit different than normal hex staking. Like in hex staking, you're staking for a set number of days where it's all or nothing, where you have to end it all or you don't end it all. So that's not how team is. So team, you do in these year-long increments. You're not doing for like a set number of days. You're effectively committing until the end of the next base stake. And then if say you want to early end stake, or you just want to end stake in general, you choose how many coins you're end staking at a time. And we'll talk about that here in a second. So stake terms last 1 year at a time, and you must check in with the contract at least once per year to roll forward your team stake. This is to prevent lost keys or dead people from absorbing the team staker income. So this is really important. So when you're staking, if you start a stake, you have to renew it every single year if you want to roll into the next staking period. You can do that at any time during a current stake. So during any current staking period, you can roll forward your existing stake into the next staking period. And so all that does is it just changes your expiry date and then marks you as being staked during the next staking period. And then you can also early end stake your rolled forward team, but you experience that early end stake penalty. So this is really important because the whole point of all of this is to incentivize the growth and advancement of the Maximus stake pooling ecosystem. And so we want these payments to be going to people that are actively engaged. And the way that we're causing people to prove that they're actively engaged is you just have to check in with the contract at least once a year, meaning you have to roll forward your stake for that next year, or you have to, restake your stake if it's already expired. So you have to check in once a year. It's very important. And so you should just, set yourself a reminder, or, but you don't have to do it within any like short period. You have the whole year to do it. So at any point in the current year, you can commit to the next year. So there, you don't have to worry, as long as you can get to your private keys at least once a year, then you'll be able to participate. If you end your staked team before your stake expires, you experience a 3.69% penalty on the amount you early end staked. This penalty is simply not minted back into existence, and it is as if your team is distributed to everyone else equally. For example, if you stake 1 million team and then early end stake 100,000 of your team, you only get back 96,310 team, and the remaining 3,690 team is permanently burnt, forever decreasing the team supply. So this is very important. When you early end stake your team, that you experience that 3.69% penalty on the amount that you early end staked. And since you don't have to end stake it all at once, you can just break off part of it in early end stake, and you only get the penalty on the amount that you've early end staked. And that penalty being burnt, it's really just like it's being distributed to everyone else because, excuse me, because everybody else's, percent of the pie just grows a little bit while yours shrunk. Because if you're paying the penalty, if you're experiencing that penalty, then your portion of the pie is shrinking, but your portion of the pie shrinking is just causing everyone else's portion to increase. So it's just as if you paid your team to everyone else. And so that's one way to think about it. Even like not staking team, you're still earning, effective team yield, because by not staking your team, you're not experiencing any penalty. You're only earning penalties. So your portion of the pie is still growing whether you're staked or not, your portion is still growing as long as you're not early end staking. So that's one, maybe that makes more people tolerant of the opportunity cost of staking, because they're like, okay, if I'm not staking, I can sell into a pump if price is running. And if price is running, that's probably we'll probably see a lot of early end staking around the time that price is running, because people want to lock in gains. And so as price runs and causes people to early end stake, then, you're earning more, you now have more of the total team supply, and, you are liquid. And so you can sell into that pump. So, so that's, so there's a lot of strategy that'll go into deciding what percent of your team to stake, because you have to think okay, am I possibly going to want to early end stake any of this? And if you think that there's a chance that you might early end stake, you might as well just hold it liquid. And so just so you don't experience that penalty. But yeah, those are the basic things that you just kind of have to internalize. You have to stake for a full year. When you're staked, your team is burnt. So it's not in anyone's custody. Nothing happens to it. It's burnt, and it is remitted in your wallet when you end stake. You have to renew your stake every year. It's not just a permanent thing. You have to deliberately lock into each additional stake. And if you early end stake, you experience a 3.69% penalty on the amount that you early end staked. So that's basically it. Let's see if there are any questions before we go on. What's up, Hex Huddle? Hey, buddy. Hey, Hexo. What's up, dude? Align the light. Hex Love, bless you too, man. So let's just go over these staking, the staking functions again. So these will be available on the dashboard. So when you go to the DApp that we put up, you'll see these based on your stake record. This will tell you which ones you can run at that time. But say you want to run this on your own, say you want to just run this on Etherscan. Say say we take down the website, or say you don't trust the website and you want to run it directly on Etherscan, or you want to run it from your own node or something. These are the functions that you'll run. So the first one is to stake liquid team in your wallet. You're going to run the stake team function. And so stake team takes in a single value, which is amount. And it creates a stake record with a unique stake ID for the next staking period, or it adds to a stake record for the period if you've already staked into that next staking period. Then it increments the global and your user amount staked tallies, and it increments the global and user active staked per period tallies. Then it sets the expiry period on the stake record, and it burns the team that you staked. So that's what happens. So this stake record, it's pretty much like a coat check. Like when you stake your team, it issues you a stake record that you then use to manage your stake from there. That's what keeps track of how many team you've staked, how many you've unstaked, what periods you're staked in, and what periods you've successfully staked. So this stake record is very important. You don't have to worry about not losing it because it's not like an NFT or a token. It's like a non-transferable NFT that doesn't have a JPEG related to it. It's just like a record in the contract, and then that's what you'll use to manage your stake. Because you see that stake ID, you'll see it appear in just about every other function for managing your stake. You have to reference that stake ID. So that's just how you start the stake. This is important here, where you only get one stake record per period that you stake. So when say right now it's period 0, meaning that stake period 1 hasn't started yet, and then you run stake team for 100 team, it creates you a stake record. Then say a little bit later you want to add 50 more team to your stake, you run stake team again, and since your staking period hasn't started, it just adds it to the existing stake record. So you'll get one stake record per period that you run stake team in. And so you don't have to worry about all these different stakes. You'll basically just have one stake per year at most that you'll have to manage. And so that shouldn't be too difficult to go through. I know people that have like hundreds and hundreds of hex stakes. Like that's kind of wacky. So we made it so that like all your staked team is bundled into these like yearly stake records, and that's just to make it a little bit simpler of a user experience for you. And so once you've staked your team, there's a couple things you can do from there. So to end your stake before your stake expiry period is complete, you run early end stake team, and you pass in your stake ID that you're early end staking and the amount you want to early end stake. So what this does is it decrements the global and user amount staked tallies. It decrements the global and user active stake per period, and then it mints the amount of team you requested minus the penalty that it incurred. So yeah, that's how that works. It's really simple. And what these do is these decrement global and user amount stake tallies, and the stake per period tallies. That's what makes sure that you can't get stake rewards for team that did not successfully end the stake. So by being decreased from the global and user active stake per period tallies, that's what makes sure that you can only earn for periods that you stake throughout successfully. Because by removing the team from these tallies, that means that team did not stake successfully for that whole year. And these tallies they're crystallized as each stake period ends. So as long as you start your stake and then don't run early end stake, the total amount that you ran through stake team is going to earn over that period. But if you early end stake, it's removed from that tally. So that's how we ensure that users aren't not serving their stake but still earning rewards. And so to end a stake that has already reached its stake expiry period, we're going to run end completed stake. And same as early end stake, you pass in stake ID and amount. So we broke these, even though these are basically the same function as early end stake, we broke these up so that users are more clear on that they're early end staking, and that people don't like accidentally just run end stake and then get a penalty. Like we wanted it to be very deliberate that you're running a completely separate function if you're early end staking or if you're staking something that's already been completed. So even though like it's basically the same code, we split those up into two different functions just for the user experience, so people have a better understanding of the what's actually happening when they're managing their stake. So it's just for users to have a better grasp on that. And then all that does, so what's the only thing that's different about this is that this one only decrements the global and user amount staked tallies. So you see how it doesn't include the global and user active stake per period tallies? That's because these only get updated if it's before or during these periods. Since this is now after its end completed stake, these values are now crystallized. So there's no updating of like these per period stake tallies, because those get crystallized as the stake period ends. And now that it's ended, because we're running this on a completed stake, those values are now finalized. So it only decreases the total amount that have been staked and the total amount that you have staked, and it doesn't do anything to the values of staked per period. So it just decreases those values based on the amount that you ended stake, and it mints the amount of team that you requested. So now let's get into rolling forward. So say you've already staked and then you want to lock into the next period. What do you do? So to roll forward an active team stake into the next staking period, you run a function called extend stake, and all you do is pass it your stake ID. So what that does is it increments the global and user active staked per period tallies for the next period. So so just like it's the same thing as what happens when you stake team, like just when you're starting a new stake, except it's not doing the burning of those coins. It's just adding to your values of how many team you've staked per that next stake period. And then it updates that current stake record's stake expiry period to be the next period. So all it does is it basically like convert. So when you roll forward your existing stake, you're not creating a new stake record. You're just extending the expiry date for your current stake, and you're updating the record that indicates how many you staked during the current period and how many staked in that next period from that current stake. So all it does is it really just like moves your expiry date into that next period. And so it's not creating a brand new stake. It's just like extending your current stake. And that's done just to make it a little bit easier to manage the like the claiming of rewards from those different periods, and not like mixing newly staked team with team that's rolled forward because of how it has to handle the penalty pretty much. So that's just why that's structured in that way. And so important to note, when you extend your stake, notice how there's no input parameter for amount. You're actually rolling forward your entire stake. Just for simplicity of the contract, to make it easier for you all to understand. It like the first version did have it where you could choose how many you want to roll forward. That just created a whole can of worms, and it just made it very difficult. So to simplify the whole roll forward process, you're basically just rolling forward your entire stake. And so that also is a pumpamental, because if you're having to roll forward your entire stake, that basically increases the amount of total early end stake penalties that could happen, because what if someone regrets it? So that's a pumpamental on the team price. By making this roll forward a pretty strict commitment, one, it'll either make people rethink if they really do want to roll forward, and if you roll forward, then it extends the period of time during which an early end stake penalty can happen on that stake team. So overall, by making this a big, like rolling your entire stake forward, that could be a pretty serious pumpamental on the team price, by either making people not want to stake, which increases earnings, which attracts new users because they want to earn that yield, but also because it increases the total number of people that could early end stake and cause that deflationary 3.69% penalty. So the last function is to roll forward an expired team stake into the next period. You run this function called Restake expired stake. And so pretty much what that does is it does some of the same steps as end complete stake. So it doesn't decrease. So it decreases the globe. Or actually, no, it doesn't. It doesn't do anything to the tallies, because it doesn't need to decrease or increase those because you're just restaking. But it does effectively. It updates a value in here by updating stake.unstaked amount. And if you remember what we talked about yesterday, that stake record has two different parameters that indicate how much has been staked. One is the amount, and then one is the amount unstaked. And so when you unstake, it increases the value of unstaked amount up to the point where unstaked amount equals amount. And that means that everything that you staked in that stake has been unstaked. And so all this does is it updates that unstaked amount value to be equal to the amount. So it basically like ends your stake from that period, and then creates a brand new stake record that's entirely new. So basically it's as if you ran end completed stake and then just like staked all that team again. So, where it decreases it, then increases that value. So you don't have to do that. It doesn't need to mint and then burn. It just skips both of those steps, just keeps it burnt. But it does create a new stake record. So if you run this restake expired stake, it's like as if you started a brand new stake. There's no difference between old stakes that you roll forward and then new stakes. There's truly no difference at all. But this is just how the accounting's done. So based on based on when you staked, when it expired, and what period it currently is now, that's how the DApp will tell you which one of these functions you can run at that time. And so hopefully that's pretty easy for people to know. It's like there's it's kind of all the different scenarios. It's like you can either end a stake early or end a stake after it's done, or you can extend an existing stake, or you can roll forward a stake that's already expired if you haven't unstaked it already. So that's pretty much all there is to the staking. There are just these 5 functions. Hopefully they're easy enough for people to understand. I think they will be. And these, doing it via these like stake records, it actually makes it really easy to manage the stake claiming. So yeah, that's pretty much how it works. Thanks, Value Brand. How many times was stake said during stream? New world record. Yeah. Maybe I should go eat a steak after this too, just to complete the circle. See if anyone else has any questions. All right. Well, so yeah, I mean, that's all I had today. I think that unless anyone else has any more questions, I'm probably gonna close this out. But yeah, here I'll post this in the chat, the link to this to the document that I had sent, and then I'll try to add that to the description of this video if you're watching later. But yeah, I think I'll leave you all with that today. Okay, so Sweaty Edits asked, has audit started? I'm a bit late. No, audit has not started. I'm finalizing the contract fully, so I'm working on just getting everything ready for us to just do like a user testing on the contract, just to kind of catch all the last, like dot the I's, cross the T's, and then once that's done, then the audit will start. But I've already started talking to the auditors, so they'll be ready for this once we're ready. All right, y'all. I'm gonna go ahead and sign off here. Thank you so much for joining us. Stay tuned for more updates on this, and once this is ready to test, I would greatly appreciate to have any of you help with that testing. So yeah, we'll talk to y'all soon. Have a good day.